Thank you for coming to the welcome and application kickoff meeting for 2018 applicants. Sorry, a little technical there we go. So we know that this is a daunting process. This is our kickoff slide, and we want everybody to see some of our previous applicants who have started in medical school so that you can see the end result and the fact that, yes, indeed, this is a goal that is possible. It's a long process, and it's rigorous. It takes a lot of time and energy. And that's definitely something that you have to be mindful and cognizant of as you're going through this. This is a marathon, not a sprint. Now is a really good time to start thinking about your time management, your stress management strategies. But these end goals, the happy smiling faces of people in medical school and dental school and veterinary school, these are the outcomes that we hope for and expect for you guys. So a goal well worth attaining, but it is a little ways off, right? So we're gonna go through the process of what comes between here and now. So our goals for today, this is going to be a big picture workshop. We're going to go over some information from previous applicants. Every year we do a survey and find out, well, what do you think was useful? What things did you, looking back, think you knew the most about? What did you need to do? Like what were your strengths? Thinking about how to pick the best year to apply, using data and reflection for self-assessment. We're all scientists here. We want to use a scientific approach to application. Gap years are typical, so you want to really think about how do you apply so that you're applying at the best time for you so that you're not wasting money and energy on applying when it's not going to be your best time to apply. We'll talk a little bit about letters, although we're going to have a letters workshop, so we're not going to go into great detail today about letters. We're going to talk about applying early, and that's something that you're going to hear from us a lot. And we're going to talk about all the ways that you can get help during this process, because this is definitely not a process where you should go it alone. This is a place where, in a time where you should reach out and use your resources. So at the end of each application cycle, we do a survey of our applicants, those who are accepted and those who aren't. And what we learned from our post-application evaluation, Northeastern students on average felt that the greatest strength of their application was their research experience. Second in there was their clinical experience. So those were the things that people felt really confident about. A lot of people have done research co-ops, and so that I think is part of why. The greatest weakness that people felt was GPA and entrance exam scores. And for those of you who signed up for your MCAT today, that's something to kind of really think about. You don't want to go into the application process worrying, is my MCAT going to be good enough? They have you sign up for the MCAT in October, and the soonest that you're going to be able to take it if you signed up for it today is going to be in January. So they're having you sign up early for a reason. You really want to be focusing, you want to be studying, you want to be reminding yourself, I have the choice to go out tonight or to study. What do I want to do? What am I going to be happy that I have done 6 months from now when I'm submitting my application? It's the decisions that you make every day that make that difference in the long run. So really be mindful that people looking back on their application cycle have said, oh, I wish that exam score had been better. I wish that GPA had been better. I wish that maybe I had waited a year and gotten all 8 semesters. We also asked them about the most valuable pre-health advising program resource. Overwhelmingly, it was some advising from us, personal advising, so coming in for an appointment, and the foundation meetings that we have that we'll talk about briefly, and also the workshops, so these sessions that we do. We definitely encourage you to set up an appointment. You can set up an appointment with me, Cynthia. I didn't introduce myself. On your MyNEU account, if you are an alum, you'll still have access to your MyNEU account for a year. If it's been longer than that, you can email me to set up an account. If you're applying to MD, PhD programs, I would definitely recommend setting up an appointment with Dr. Begley and just email her for that, g.begley@neu.edu. She has walk-ins for her classes, but I would say at this point, just set up an appointment with her, because you want to have, an hour that's just dedicated to you, so you can have a conversation and not worry that she's going to have a line outside her door. So self-assessments using national data to judge your readiness is really important. Now, the self-assessment is due to be uploaded and mapped by January 31st. You'll find the self-assessment in map, so there's a link to it. It's really posted in Google Documents, so the link will take you to the Google document. You'll download that, save it to your computer. It's a fillable PDF. Last year, some people had difficulty in that they didn't save a copy of it. So make sure that before you fill the entire thing out, save it, close it, and then open it and make sure it's saving. You don't want to go through the entire thing and then realize, oh, this wasn't saving. So you are going to download a copy of it and save it. You'll upload the completed self-assessment by January 31st. You could wait until January 31st at 10 p.m. to start that. I don't recommend it. It's a very long self-assessment. What we really try to do is look at everything that the admissions committees are going to look at and say, these are the things that you need to be thinking about. Think about this. Where are you? What have you done? By spending time on this, you do a wide variety of different things. Number one, if you look through it and you think, this one area, I'm not really as confident in it as I hoped I would be, maybe you decide, well, you know what, I'm going to take another year and wait to apply, because I really want to be the best possible applicant that I can be. Number two, we really use these self-assessments. I cannot stress to you how much we use these self-assessments in putting together the committee letters. And actually, when I write committee letters, in the committee letter, each committee letter, I try and quote the applicant once. And I'll just pull a quote right out of the self-assessment. So people ask me, how do I get a good committee letter? What things can I do? Well, take some time to put together a good self-assessment so that I know all the things that you've done, all your accomplishments, and more than just what you've done, what you've learned from it. Because you can spend 200 hours volunteering and learn absolutely nothing from it. And the admissions committees really care about what you took away from your experiences. That's what's key to them. When you go to put together your application, a lot of the things that you'll put on your application will be the same as what you put in MAP and on your self-assessment. So doing a good job with those things now are going to make it easier to put together your application and to put together some of those secondaries. And then the stuff that you write about in your self-assessment is stuff that you're going to talk about in your interviews. So we're not putting all of this together to torture you. I know when you open it up and you look at it, you're going to think, oh, this is really long, but it's all for a purpose, and it's really meant to help you out. So on the other side, what are some of the most common mistakes that we see applicants make? Number one, applying when the data tells you to wait. And sometimes I hear people say, well, I wasn't quite sure that I was ready, but I just decided to try and see what happens. That's one strategy. I will say, though, you really need to think about what's your end goal. A lot of the time people say, oh, I just want to go anywhere that takes me. Not really thinking about, okay, once that happens, you're going to school there, and that's where the next 4 years of your life are. And this is the rest of your life and your career that you're talking about. You want to be really mindful about what you want and what your goals are. Anywhere that takes you is probably not really your goal. Think about what your goal is. And for many people, your goal is to go to your state school, and that is an awesome goal. But really do some thinking about, what is my goal? What do I need to do to reach that goal? Have I reached it? If you haven't reached it, applying is a mistake. Wait until you've reached it. Another very common mistake, and this is actually probably the most common mistake that we see, is sitting for your admissions exam before you're fully prepared. We recommend taking all the required courses, study for 4 to 6 months, and then take the exam. If you take the exam and you don't do as well as you hoped, you should not then turn around and take it again the next month, unless you were sick on the day that you took it, whatever. That does sometimes happen, but in general, it is a very, very bad idea. The data pretty clearly shows that, yes, sometimes if people turn around and retake it, their scores go up, but it is equally common for those scores to go down. And having two scores close together that are not the scores that you want can really, really hurt you in your application. So you really want to think about that. Applying late is also a very common mistake, and we'll talk about that more later. In terms of gap years, most of you guys have hopefully seen the pie chart in terms of year of graduation and year of application. So this is data on 2016 applicants, what year they graduated from Northeastern. So this light blue group, 21% of our applicants applied to go directly to medical school. And so this is just MD programs. Some of you are going to be applying to DO, dental, veterinary, optometry, podiatry. Unfortunately, we don't have a large enough sample to put together a chart on the other programs, so that we do just have the MD. The other data is fairly similar, though, from anecdotal evidence. It's important to see 79% of our students do take at least one gap year. Does that mean you need to take a gap year? No, obviously, absolutely, it does not mean that. But what it does do is it gives you the freedom to say, do I want to? Do I need to take a gap year? It gives you the choice. And what we found is that the medical schools don't care. Average age entering into medical school is about 24. So taking a gap year does not hurt people. Now, in terms of letters, when you apply to professional medical programs, so medical school, dental school, etc., there are 3 different types of letters. You can apply with a committee letter, which we do write committee letters here. You can apply with a letter packet, which we also do letter packets, and you can have individual letters which do not come through us. We strongly encourage anybody who's applying to medical or dental school or podiatry programs to apply with a committee letter. Getting a committee letter means that you need to meet every deadline, every single one of them. It means that you need to get all of the required letters. It means that you need to meet all the requirements, so you need to release your MCAT scores to us, you need to release your application to us, and you do that when you sign up for the MCAT and when you apply, when you submit your application, and we use that data to advise future students. For folks who miss a deadline and don't qualify for a committee letter, we can still do a letter packet. Individual letters are typically for either folks who don't have the required letters or folks who have some other circumstance. And that's something that you would talk to us. It's really important to note that incomplete letter collections will not be sent either as a committee letter or a letter packet. So if you can't meet all of the requirements for the letters, 3 faculty letters, the clinical letter, don't request them through MAP. We won't send them into the schools. And we also cannot send schools into programs besides the ones that they were intended. So medical master's programs, other types of programs, we're not able to forward them. The letters don't have our signatures. They're sent to us and entrusted to us for one purpose only. Is a committee letter for me? For folks who are applying to dental, MD, DO, or podiatry programs who are current students or recent alumni, then yes, you do want a committee letter. Schools, you're not required to get one. It's your choice, completely your decision. We do have a lot of requirements for those committee letters. Be aware that if you don't have a committee letter, schools may ask you why you don't have a committee letter. They'll want an explanation for that. Most schools do know that we write committee letters, so they're going to ask you for an explanation. Optometry and veterinary applicants, those programs in general don't want committee letters, so we don't require them. If you're applying to optometry or veterinary school and you want to talk to us about a committee letter, certainly feel free to do so, and you would want to do that before January. If you're confused about letters, first read the detailed requirements on the website in the letters section. Go over the applicant agreement, which you'll find in MAP. We will have a letters workshop. Also, definitely feel free to set up an appointment with me if you have any questions, concerns, if you're thinking about who to ask. I definitely encourage people to run their list of letter writers past me just to make sure that it's a good collection, a good set of letter writers. And, you're welcome to make an appointment or just send me an email about that. Now, in terms of application timing, I believe most of you guys have seen the Northeastern MD acceptances by month applied. Again, we don't have this data on the other programs because we have smaller sample sizes. The other programs, dental, DO, optometry, podiatry, they do echo this pattern. Earlier is better. June is really the best time to apply. Much higher acceptance rates. Okay, so are you confused about what you need to do and when? So there is a lot to do. There's a lot of planning involved and a lot of stuff that you need to turn in and to be thinking about. So the first thing, information is listed on the website, and in the committee letter section, we kind of have things broken down by month. The applicant agreement has all of our due dates. And next week we will have the timeline workshop, and that timeline workshop will go over things from next week, basically, pretty much through matriculation. So we're going to go through all of our deadlines and requirements, but also what you can expect to hear from the schools. So make sure to go to that workshop, or if you can't go to it, or if it's already happened, there's going to be a YouTube of that one posted as well. Also, are you feeling unsure about things? If you have questions about stuff, if you've gone over those and you're still wondering about things, definitely first complete the self-assessment, look over the self-assessment. I recommend even, today, tomorrow, download the self-assessment, do a first read through, start doing preliminary answers on that for yourself. You're probably not going to flesh out all the details and do the final answers yet, but at least make sure jot down some bullet notes for yourself. Make sure that you can think of something for every category and then be reflecting on it as you're going along. With a lot of this stuff, things like your personal statement, you're not necessarily going to want to sit down and write everything out once and then not go back to it. It's good to reflect on things, write it down, reflect on it, come back to it, read it over, make changes and additions. Unsure about things. So the self-assessment, we're going to have foundation meetings, which are small group meetings, and you'll get more details about that. Those will be in November and early December. You'll sign up through them either through your MyNEU or via email, and you'll get more details about that soon. Also, of course, feel free to make an appointment with me to ask any individual questions. So all of our workshops and meetings are listed here, and you can see that we've really got a lot of stuff broken out by individual topic. I definitely want to point out the timeline will be next week. That's a really important session. If you're not able to attend it, definitely look over the slides, which I will email to everyone, or listen to the YouTube, because that's going to go over a lot of really important things so you can kind of square away the details and the timeline in your head. Think about when you're going to need time for doing different tasks. Like time, one of the big time crunches is actually end of June, beginning of July, when you're writing all your secondaries. So you're going to need time for that. Also, money. It's expensive. It's a very expensive process. Secondaries are very expensive. And then when you're interviewing, that's also going to be a big expense. So we'll talk about that a little bit. November 3rd, we're going to have the Dean of Admissions from Tufts Medical School on campus, Dr. Newmeyer. He's going to be presenting in the Fenway. I definitely recommend coming to that if you can. Even if you're not planning for MD programs, it's very easy to get stuck in your own head and kind of get that gerbil spinning wheel thing going about, oh, this, that, the other thing, and get so caught up in your own thoughts. Hearing from somebody who's kind of on the other side of the picture, who's looking at your applications and understand what they're thinking about and what they're looking at when they're looking at your application, what's important to them, who are these folks. Dr. Newmeyer is a really engaging speaker, and he's a human being. There will be no fire coming out of his mouth. He has no horns. He's a really great person to hear from, and I think that he will put a very human perspective on admissions and really help you to kind of get a general sense of, okay, this is things from the admission side, and kind of help you to feel a little bit better about the process, and also just to kind of get a sense of what he's thinking about. We're going to talk about the MCAT, letters of evaluation we'll be talking about in November. We're going to have a workshop where you start your personal statement in December. You really do want to be starting it that early, like in December, because it's not going to be, oh, I just sit down and write this. We had some students come to the on-ground session, and one of the students said that she wrote her personal statement 18 different times. She had 18 different drafts, and I got to say, I read her personal statement. It was a really awesome statement when she finished it. But it wasn't her just sitting down and saying, okay, 20 minutes, I'll just pop this right out. So you really do want to be starting this in December at the latest. And I would say, sometimes people are thinking about, well, where do I even start? If you had 5 minutes to sit down with somebody from admissions, what would be the first thing that you would talk to them about? So maybe start thinking about something like that. We're going to have the foundation meetings, and sign up for that will be coming soon. In January, we're going to start talking about how do you choose your schools? What things do you think about when you're selecting schools? A lot of the time on the secondaries, they're going to ask you, why do you want to go to this school? And the answer cannot be it's sunny and 75 degrees out every day. So you really want to be doing research on each of the programs and thinking about, what do I like about this specific school? Why do I want to go to this program? Again, you may be thinking, I'll go anywhere that lets me in. But what we generally see is students who are most successful are successful because they match who they are with the program, and they can speak to, I want to go to this school because blah, 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 and it winds up being a good match. Now, blah, 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 that I just said there, it's going to be different for each person, and that's a little bit tricky. So how do you think about that? We're going to have an accepted students panel, so we'll have a half a dozen students who have been accepted into programs come and answer your questions in March, and that has been a really good session and a great way to hear from students who have gone through just what you're going through right now. And then in May, the applications become available. So the applications open up in May. You submit them in June typically. We will go over the application. So we'll talk about filling out and what are they looking for and what steps you need to take in that session. And then, of course, we'll talk about interviewing. And then just a little note. Here are the resources that we have. You're welcome to use these resources if you get a committee letter, if you don't get a committee letter. We have the individual advising, the foundation meeting, group advising, all of our workshops. We're happy to give you personal statement feedback. Now, if you're doing 18 drafts of your personal statement, we would really rather not read 18 personal drafts. We would say get it a little bit closer to where you think you're getting to a final draft. And part of that is if we read every evolution of your personal statement, it starts to blur. Whereas if we, the first time you read it, it's going to have the biggest impact. And so if we see it as it evolves, we're going to kind of know what you meant to say from the last one potentially. And so it, we may add inferences from previous ones to reading a statement. We do some interview preparation. We also, Career Services has some resources. And then one of the things that's one of our most popular programs, we do have some connections with alumni when you get to the point where you're interviewing at programs. So we do have alumni who are attending a lot of the different medical, dental, veterinary, optometry, podiatry schools, and they're happy to talk to you guys about their experiences. That can be really useful in, number one, just setting up the logistics of a visit, but number two, understanding what's important to the schools at the time and what are some important initiatives, what are some kind of things that they're emphasizing right now, what's the school all about. So, questions, anyone? If you have questions, please feel free to type in the chat box. Anyone? I think I'm going to pause the recording or stop the recording right now, and I'll answer questions that anybody has. So thank you everyone for who's watching the YouTube. And if you do have questions, if you're watching the YouTube, definitely feel free to set up an appointment with me.